Well, Microsoft founder Bill Gates recently announced that by the year 2035, there will be virtually no poor countries left in the world, at least as measured by 2014 standards. Gates, long the richest man in the world, he kind of oscillates on and out of that position, credits the Western aid that we provide to these countries as the primary force lifting the poorest countries out of the scourge of poverty, primarily through health initiatives. Gates claims that by 2035, the poorest nations in the world will have child mortality rates as low as the United States or the United Kingdom, at least as low as their rates were back in 1980. Joining me now to celebrate and analyze this remarkable trend are Steve Green and Scott Ott. Welcome, lads. Well, gentlemen, there seems to be little to argue about regarding the numbers, at least as far as public health is concerned, and healthier parents have fewer children. Large families have traditionally been an insurance policy for poor parents, since large numbers of even very poor children can provide a safety net and can, as the old joke goes, be mass-produced by unskilled labor. So all of that is good news, but Steve, what are we seeing, and what Bill Gates, throughout his Gates Foundation, are doing to the tune of almost about $30 billion is we're transferring Western wealth into health aid for the poorest nations. But does that help or even hinder those nations from being able to go on and generate wealth for themselves? What do you think, Vodka Pundit? Are we hurting these people in the long run?
Well, first off, I would like to say that I hope Bill Gates is right. If there's a solution to this, and he's the one who has it, I'm not going to argue against it if it works. Look, I've been American-level poor, working about 25 hours a week for $4.50 an hour, and that's bad enough. You go to third world poor, and as you said after your visit to Thailand, that's a whole nother story. Yep. But it depends on where the money is going. Look, if you put money into something that generates more money, you're creating wealth. You're increasing the wealth that's available for everybody to use. Microloans is a huge industry in India, and it doesn't require any foreign aid whatsoever, and that's lifted millions of people out of poverty. But if it's $1 billion from Bill Gates or from USA that goes to build a superhighway from the capital city to the President for Life's personal palace out in the boonies, that nobody ever actually drives on, you have destroyed wealth. You have reduced the total amount of wealth available in the world for people to help lift themselves up with. So it depends on where the money goes. But we have a proven way to allow poor people from poor countries to grow rich, and it's not a secret. It's written right there on the base of the Statue of Liberty, and anybody who reads that, anybody who checks in at Staten Island knows what that means.
No, it's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Well, Scotty, let's assume that Bill Gates is right here, and that by 2035, with the possible exception, as he said, of utterly self-destructive states like North Korea, for example, let's assume that the entire world will live above the international poverty line. Do you think we're going to see a parade that day and a giant banner hanging from the side of the United Nations building saying, "Problem solved"?
Absolutely not. And no, in fact, when Mr. Gates is speaking about that, he doesn't mean that every individual in the world will be living above the poverty line. He just means that in the aggregate and on the average, you won't be able to classify countries as impoverished countries anymore, like you said, in 2014 dollars. So he's not talking about what he seems to be talking about, but I think he's right. Things are getting better and better. He's wrong about why. The why it's amazing that he misses it, because he was largely responsible for it. I mean, the computer industry itself has been a gigantic boon to Asia and India and other places around the world and Eastern Europe. And so, he sort of misses the fact that what's really pulling people up out of poverty is their ability to sustain themselves by having jobs, by doing actual work. There is a place for international aid when it comes to disaster relief, for example, but I think in the large part that can be done by private contributions rather than government allocations. I think, unfortunately, when that moment comes and the announcement is made, what we will hear about more than ever is the gap between rich and poor. It will be, once again, income inequality on steroids.
Don't you worry about that, Scotty, because while the poor countries are getting richer, we are certainly heading in the other direction ourselves. Look, folks, this is certainly good news about the rest of the world, but it's not unexpected, and the cause is obvious. A rising tide does float all the boats. China, for example, has gone from the Stone Age to skyscrapers in about a generation or two at the most because of their enormous and very highly motivated labor pool. which produces incredibly cheap products, which rich Westerners buy, which transfers first world wealth into the Far East. So far, so good. Now, if China just played fair with third age, information age goods and services by respecting copyright and trademark laws, let's say, just as one example, we'd actually have a good deal going here. But ask any honest diplomat from the poorest countries on earth about the true cost of their foreign aid, and they'll tell you that handouts lead to dependency and mental inertia. Nothing gets started in those countries. They are in the aid business. And the irony, of course, is that all of the economic freedoms that allowed Bill Gates to reach incredible levels of wealth in America, not just for himself, but for all of the Microsoft shareholders and the employees and all the people that they paid downstream, well, they're being steadily eroded by the same progressive politicians that Bill Gates himself supports. Poor countries are rising steadily, and the United States of America, long and proudly the freest country in the world, is now 12th. We're in the mostly free column. The top two? Hong Kong and Singapore. Maybe they could reach down and donate some economic policies to a country that's a little down on its luck in that area. For PJTV, I'm Bill Woodall.